I'm Alejo and Paige's assistant. Is this Paige?
This is Paige.
Great, Paige. I'm just calling to confirm that you'll be joining Alejo and Paige at your upcoming appointment with Amplify Voice on Friday, August 16th at 4 p.m. Will you be able to attend?
Yeah, thanks for the reminder. I will be there.
Perfect. Have you added the event to your calendar? The Zoom link is in the calendar invite.
I have not. I'm going to do that right now. Thanks. Anything else I need to know?
That's all for now. Just make sure to check your email for the invite and add it to your calendar. Looking forward to seeing you at the meeting.
Thank you. I don't know about you, but the pain of no-shows for us is super real. Too many times people have booked on our calendar and then just not showed up to the meeting. Time is money, time is productivity. That time could have been spent doing other things. And this is something that we've decided that we want to minimize as much as possible in our business to protect our time and ultimately ensure that all of our energy and productivity is going towards meaningful tasks and meaningful meetings. So today I'm going to walk you through a very cool no more no-shows automation that I built alongside my business partner Alejo to eliminate no-shows, ensure that people who book with us are going to show up, and also showcase the products that we sell, which are voice agents and voice AI solutions. For those of you that don't know me, welcome to our channel. My name is Paige. I'm the co-founder of Amplify Voice, a company focused on voice AI solutions for all kinds of businesses. And our goal is really to harness the power of voice AI to amplify the parts of your business where being human matters most. So today we'll be looking at two low-code tools, Vapi and Make, which are the tools that I used to create an outbound voice agent that calls people who've booked appointments on our calendar within 24 hours of the booking. This is a V1 version and I'm excited to keep building on top of it, but it's a really fundamental structure that you can use as a way to amplify your business, and in doing so, show other businesses what's possible with voice AI. So let's dive in. I'm guessing you've seen the inside of Vapi before, but if you've never seen Vapi before, here's a quick glimpse inside the platform where we're using natural language to create a prompt for a voice assistant that we're then gonna pull into the Make scenario. So I'm gonna give you a high-level overview of how I built the prompt for my agent. I'm not gonna cover every single detail about the settings that I use, but if you are interested in understanding all of the different components of Vapi and really becoming fluent in the platform, Alejo made another video that goes over the entire Vapi platform and talks about optimal settings to really get into the nitty-gritty, so you can check it out there. I called this assistant no-shows. So let's take a look at the prompt first. The first thing the agent will say is introduce themselves, say, hey, I'm Alejo and Paige's assistant. Is this so-and-so? And that name is gonna be the name of the person that booked the appointment through our Calendly. So it's a data point that's gonna change, and it's a data point that in the automation we will extract, and I'll show you that when we get into Make. But for now, all you need to know and what's important is that is why you see the variable structured inside the triangle brackets. And then the prompt. The prompt is structured using Markdown with the hashtags and the dashes to organize the prompt. We gave it a role. You're essentially the voice receptionist, and Alejo and Paige are the owners of a startup specialized in voice AI. And your task is to confirm scheduled appointments with people booked on our calendar. Specifics, you're gonna remind the person of the date and time, ensure they're able to attend, and remind them to check their email and add the event to their calendar, which a lot of people were missing. Our hypothesis is if they have it in the calendar, they're gonna make it, or they're at least gonna remember. Because if you're like me, if it's not in the calendar, it doesn't exist. And wait for a response after each question you ask to give them a second to answer. A little more context, you're calling with people who've already booked with Amplify Voice. They could be clients, prospects, developers, or other partners that are working with us. And your steps throughout the call are to first greet the user, second, remind them of their appointment at date. Again, this is a data point that we'll have to extract for each booking. So I formatted the variable, as you can see, using the triangle brackets. And we want to confirm that they're going to be attending. If they confirm, make sure they have added the event to their calendar and remind them that the Zoom link is in the calendar invite. We have the role, the task, the specifics, the context, the steps, and then we give it an example conversation. Q means your questions. R is the user's response. And an example conversation looks like, hi, I'm Saya, Alejo and Paige's assistant. Is this name? Wait for their response. Okay, great. Calling to confirm you'll be joining Alejo and Paige your upcoming appointment with Amplify Voice on whatever date they booked. And then answer any questions. Last thing I have is some notes. Keep your sentences short and appropriate for a phone conversation and be friendly. Not a complicated prompt. I'm using OpenAI GPT-4o cluster. There's no knowledge base. I have the temperature set pretty low. There's not a reason to add a lot of temperature to this. I'm using DeepGram for the transcriber in English and using Nova 2 phone call for the model. And I'm using a voice from 11 Labs, and I'm using 11 Turbo V2. We like to set office background noise, kind of fills the silent space. That's a personal preference. And the denoising, which is something that can easily throw the voice agents off. And I'll give you a quick flash of the settings inside here. We want moderate stability, high clarity at a 0.75, no style exaggeration, and we didn't change anything here. Again, you can check out Alejo's video if you want to really understand the why behind these settings. He does a super deep dive into it. But for the context of this video, I just wanted to give a high-level overview of this automation so that you can replicate it for yourself. I'm not using any functions native to Vapi. I'm using Make to trigger the automation, and some advanced settings to take a look at. We did turn on audio recording. We gave it a 30-second silence timeout, so just in case weird things are happening, it'll hang out after 30 seconds, but it won't end the call too soon. 0.7 second response delay, a 0.1 second LLM request delay, an interruption threshold of 2 seconds, and then maximum duration of 1800 seconds. So that's it for Vapi. This is what I'm using to create the voice agent. Let's dive into Make, and this is where the magic really happens. For those of you that don't know me, I don't come from a developer background, and I'm very much learning these tools as we go. I take care of a lot of the business aspects of Amplify Voice, and it's been super exciting to get my hands into actually building. So in the future, I really want to build these live so that you can follow along and do it with me. I actually started this build in a live stream on YouTube with Alejo, where he was sitting next to me and walking me through building this whole 2-hour process. We've refined this scenario, so it's a little bit different than the version that we ended with after that 2.5-hour live stream session. And again, a few things to build upon, but overall, this is the essential core that we need to eliminate no-shows in our business. So I'm gonna walk through this scenario. We'll open up every module, take a look at what's going on, and hopefully that will answer some questions about how you can set this up for yourself. I will be sharing my blueprint of this automation in our school community. So if you're not already a part of our school community, you can join for free, and we share all of our templates and our resources in the school community in addition to the videos that we have. We also host twice a week build hours where we invite our community to bring their projects, and we spend some time on everyone's projects kind of looking at the errors they're getting and figuring them out together, and it's been really, really fun. It's a voice community, and we've been spending a lot of time on Make lately, so if you're getting a ton of Make errors, which I definitely did when I was building this, then join us on school and bring your projects, and we'll all take a look at it together. I'll stop rambling and let's dive into the scenario. So, no-shows. This scenario is going to make confirmation calls to the United States, and that is because the agent that I have in Vapi is is built on a US phone number, and US phone numbers can make calls to other US phone numbers. So we're gonna start with the Calendly module. And some of the questions that came up when I was building this on the live stream were, why use Calendly? Why not use Google Calendar? Because the meetings that are scheduled through Calendly do show up in our Google Calendar, but sometimes we do schedule recurrent calls with clients and we know that are gonna show up. We've been working with them already for a number of months. We don't really need to call those clients. We need to call the people that we haven't met before and have the highest likelihood of not showing up. So that's why we chose Calendly, because it's the originator of the event. And when you book an appointment on our Calendly, and I'll show you here, like let's say we want to book for next Wednesday, we've set putting your phone number in as a required field so that we can send either SMS reminders, which we have set up as native automations in Calendly, and so that we can pull this number in our make automation to call that person when they book a call. So that's important to note. If you are going to use this automation, make sure that you have the phone number field in the Calendly event on your calendar, and make sure that it's required, because if it's not, people most likely are not going to fill it out. So that's why we chose Calendly and not Google Calendar, to really be specific about who we're calling. And when you initiate the first module for Calendly, you are going to have to set up the connection here. So you'll sign into your Calendly using your email, and you'll add that connection. You're going to turn the map on for both the organization URI and the user URI so that it pulls that information in. And in this first module, this is where we filter the time. There are a million ways to do the same thing. What's the best way? Well, what's the best for you? So one of the questions that came up in building this automation is, how do we make sure that the person only gets called once and that they don't get called at some weird time? So the logic that we've used here is, okay, if we call them around 24 hours before the time that they book, then we're gonna be in the safe zone. Maybe there's a little risk in that assumption, but if you are booking at a time that like works for you in your time zone, then receiving a call around that same time the day before should be in the clear. And how do we prevent the voice agent from calling more than once? We're gonna do one call. What we've done is that we've set some parameters here in the minimum start time. So let me back up a second because I kind of breezed a little bit through. So when we zoom in and you open up the Calendly module, like if I add a new module here, there's a few different functions you can ask the Calendly module to return. And in this case, we want it to return a list of events. We don't want it to return all of the events. We just want it to return the events that are happening about 24 hours from now. So that is what we're doing here. We use the add hours function. So 23 hours from now. So we're gonna add 23 to now. So at a very minimum, pull events that are at least 23 hours from now. And then maximum, I had this set to 25, but actually we're gonna set it to 24. So then at minimum, the event needs to be 23 hours from now, but no later than 24 hours from now. So we have this 1 hour window, and we're gonna sort the events by start time and ascending, and we're looking for events that are active. And the reason that 1 hour timeline is important, because as you can see down here, I've set up the scenario to run once every hour. So if it runs once in an hour and it finds an event that meets the criteria that is within 23 and 24 hours from now, it's gonna call them. But then when it checks an hour later, that same event won't meet that criteria, and we can ensure that they only get one phone call. That's a bit of a workaround to do that, but that's how we solve this problem. So we started with listing all of the events from Calendly happening within 24 hours. So eventually this module is gonna do that check. And if you look up here, this is the output. This is actually the output from the call that you saw at the beginning of the video. And when you're building this yourself, take a deep dive into this. You may or may not understand it all, but it's a great way to understand what's really happening. So we're checking for this one event. There was one bundle output. what I realized was happening was when the automation was running and I didn't have the router in and there wasn't an event happen, the scenario encountered an error. And what I learned is that when Make encounters 3 or 4 errors in a row, then it just turns the automation off. So what I did was I set up a router and a filter to say, hey, is there a meeting happening? So that if there's not a meeting happening, it doesn't result in an error in Make. And the filter is simply going by, hey, is the total number of bundles greater than or equal to 1? Is there at least one meeting? And the total number of bundles comes from this, right? So like the output is bundles. So if there's a meeting, it passes through the router. If there's not, it doesn't pass through the router and it doesn't create an error in Make. So the scenario stays live. The next thing that we want to get here is the list of the event invitees. As I showed you in the Vapi dashboard, we want to be able to pull the information, the name of the person who booked, as well as the date and time of their appointment. And that information we get from Calendly. So there's another Calendly module here where we're gonna list event invitees. Again, you'll input your connection. Once you have it set up, simply click on it. And then we need to add the event URI, which comes from module 2 here. So I just pulled the URI from module 1, and we wanna make sure that the event is active. Don't need anything else in this module. Now that we have the data we need from Calendly, which is there a meeting happening within 23 and 24 hours? Yes, there's a meeting. Okay, so let's get the data of who's attending that meeting at what time. And now we need to bring our agent into Make. So I was trying to use the Vapi module, like that makes sense to me. I was banging my head up against the wall over and over, it wasn't working. And then I phoned a friend and called Alejo and he was like, oh yeah, actually, we don't need to use the Vapi module. It's frustrating that it doesn't work, but the way that I've learned to do it and the way that he's built a lot of our scenarios and Make that we use for clients are using this HTTP module. So the next module is a tool. These next 3 tools, so tool 6, tool 11, tool 13, are pulling information from the assistant that I created in Vapi into Make. They're all set variable modules where we're gonna have to copy some information from Vapi into these tools. So the first one is the phone number ID, which lives in Vapi because our agent is going to have to make a call from this phone number. All you'll need to do here is copy the phone number ID from Vapi into the variable value. You go to phone numbers, and if you don't have a phone number, you can buy a number here. Your phone number ID is gonna live right here, and you can copy it and then paste into this variable. The next tool is the assistant ID. I'm gonna go back to Vapi, I'm gonna go to my assistant. In this case, it's no-shows, and it's right up here. So this is the copy the assistant ID. You're gonna copy that number from Vapi in here. That's all you need for this tool. And finally, we are gonna need the API key to communicate from Make to Vapi. You will be able to find your Vapi API key. If you go to your Vapi account, click your name, go to API keys, and it's right here. So you can copy it and then paste it into your Make scenario labeled as API key. I could have used a set singular variable here. Maybe I didn't need 3 modules here, but for my brain, as I'm just learning this, it was super helpful to keep it separated and also so that I can understand what's going on. So coming back to the Make scenario, we've pulled the phone number ID, the assistant ID, and the API key from Vapi into Make. Now we're gonna use an HTTP module in place of the Vapi module. And we're gonna make a request. And this request is gonna be a GET request. And as you'll see, I'm using the variables in here that I just set. Make a request, evaluate all states as errors, yes. URL, this is gonna be from Vapi because we're using Vapi to make the call. It's gonna be https :/api.vapi.ai/assistant/ the assistant ID. The method is get, and for headers, don't ask me why on this one. This is a programming thing that I'm learning. Just do it. The name is authorization, and the bearer is going to be the API key. Item 2 is going to be content type and application/JSON. Essentially, we are pulling this agent in the form of a JSON script. We're getting this request from Vapi to bring in the JSON version of the agent in Vapi into Make. We don't want to parse the response, and there's nothing else we need for this module, so we're going to move on. After the first HTTP module, we have a couple tools. But if you remember, something that our agent is missing is some variables that we need to make sure it has when it makes the call, like the person's name and the date and time of their appointment. So this is where we do that. It's a set variable tool, and I'm going to name it new assistant with date, which means I am essentially taking the JSON version of the agent from Vapi that I pulled in through the HTTP module, and I am changing it. So it uses the date and time from the booking appointment. So this is what we're gonna do. We're using a replace function. So replace parentheses. What are we replacing? Well, we're replacing all of the data, and you can see this HTTP module is glowing right now. We're replacing all of the data, all of the JSON from that module. And what do I need to replace? I need to replace date. So anywhere in the prompt where it says date, we're gonna replace it with the start time. You'll see when I hover over start time, the very first Calendly module all the way to the left is glowing. That's where it's pulling that start time. And I'm using a format date function to reformat it. So when the agent actually says it, it's gonna say, hey, is your appointment on the 15th of August at this time? That's what this means. And it's gonna register the time zone, which I'm actually pulling from the second Calendly module, of that specific event booking. Without this feature, the make scenario defaults to East Coast US time zones, which doesn't really make sense unless you live in the East Coast. So pulling in this time zone variable ensures that when the agent talks to the person, it's gonna say, hey, your event is at this time. It doesn't say the time zone, but it makes sure that it's the time that they booked. Now we have a new assistant with date, which is a new JSON version of the agent with the information about the date. We also have to adjust the name variable. Otherwise, the agent's just gonna say name. So now the JSON agent with the date replacement function is encompassed into everything that's in this tool. So that's why the replace function here is just replacing the data in the previous module. And this one's a little bit simpler. So if I hover over the name, it's pulling from the second Calendly module where we were extracting the event invitees with the name information. So this is why we needed that module. I wasn't able to get the same data from just the first one. We've essentially made it transient so that now it's gonna replace the date with the appointment time and date, and it's gonna replace the name with the event invitee. Now we need to make sure that this is a US number. For right now, we have one US number in Vapi. You can only call to other US numbers. And in the next version of this, we're gonna figure out the best solution for making calls to other countries. But for now, we wanna check to make sure that it's a US number, because if it's not a US number, the scenario will encounter an error, and again, it will just turn off, which is not what we want. The way that we're checking and making sure that only US numbers pass through this is a router module, and I do this, I click on this accidentally and it adds more modules instead of actually clicking here, which is where we need to click, and this is where the filter is set up. So the filter I've labeled as yes, this is a US number. And this part was a little bit tricky because I was having a hard time finding, extracting this data from the Calendly module. And Alejo had to help me really nail this. So I'm gonna go back here. And so we're pulling this from 17. And when we look at the output, we have to figure out where the data is in the output if you want to pull that into another module. So it's okay, here's the text reminder number. Okay, that's one place. But when they book the appointment, they're answering questions, and that data is captured by Calendly. So we go back here and we go to questions and answers. this first question and answer is the phone number we want to call. Okay, so we know it's in this question and answer, and we know it's in 1. And that is what we use to filter the US number. We say, hey, questions and answers from module 17, straight brackets 1, which is the first question, enclosed, and then colon answer, because the answer to that is the phone number. So what we're saying in this filter is, if the phone number starts with +1, which is a US number, then move forward. We only have 4 modules left. So we have a JSON version of our agent that's been passed through these modules, these tool set variables here, and changed so it becomes a transient agent. We filtered out only US numbers. And now what we are gonna do is we're gonna look at the JSON data and only pass through essential information, because there's a lot of info that's being pulled in through the JSON code that we don't really need for the agent to make a call, and we wanna simplify. And the more data that's moving through, the more errors we're liable to make. So we want to parse out only the necessary information that we need to make the call. So that's why we put this parse JSON module in here. And what are we parsing? Well, we're parsing the latest JSON version of the agent from module 15, which was right here. But now this is titled New Assistant with Name. So we're gonna create a data structure with this JSON version, which is New Assistant with Name. You can see it glowing right there. And the straight brackets will format this into a structured and ordered JSON list. So that's what this is doing. So now that we have an ordered list of the entire JSON version of the voice agent, we need to parse it. We need to say what goes through and what does not go through. So we added an array aggregator module, and I think this icon is very telling. So it's like you've got a bunch of stuff going through, but like only one arrow is going through. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're gonna parse the JSON from module 20. So you can see these are the other modules in the scenario. So we're parsing the JSON from here. It's gonna be custom, and we're selecting only the fields that we want to pass through. So as you can see, if we didn't parse the JSON here, there's just a lot of data that we don't need. Like, we don't need the ID, we don't need the org ID. We do need the name, we need the voice. We don't need created at or updated at. We need the model, and you'll notice this from the Vapi prompt. This is pulling in this, it's pulled the JSON from that. So we need the model, the first message, voicemail, end call function enabled, transcriber, client messages, server messages, response delay seconds. This seems like a lot, but this list goes on. So I'm gonna go through what I clicked on so you can see that in case you wanna replicate it for yourself. And you'll get a sense of all the other things that we're leaving behind. So response delay seconds, end call phrases, LLM request delay seconds, background sound, background denoising enabled, no is server URL secret set. I honestly don't even know what that is. And I'm gonna just scroll because these are things that we're not bringing in here. Right? So none of this we actually need. It's kind of crazy. Okay. In non-developer speak, when we look at these 3 modules, we've said, hey, let's parse this JSON, let's create an ordered structure, let's pull out certain variables and transform just that to the JSON. And this first function is what allows us to do that. So we're gonna say first, and first and only. Like, first is like, this is the only thing we're gonna use is the 18 array, which is the data from here that we've handpicked. So that's the only thing that's coming through. And then our final module, which is another HTTP, and this is going to trigger the call. So this is a post request, and a post is essentially outgoing, a get would be coming in. So now we're sending out the call, and the call is gonna be made through Vapi. Evaluate all states as errors, yes. URL, https://api.vapi.ai/call/phone. This is a post request. Again, same thing. The name is authorization. The bearer, that's because now we need the API to go back out into Vapi. Content type, application JSON. And this is where we give the parameters of the call. So the body down here is going to be raw JSON. And this is the request. So we're gonna say the phone number ID is variable 6, which I set earlier on in the scenario. The customer number is gonna be the same thing we used earlier on in the scenario to check whether this is a US number or not. So that is their phone number that we're gonna call. So from this phone number, we're gonna call this number, and we're gonna use their name. And we're gonna use the assistant, which is the most recent JSON version that we created in 25. So you'll see here, this is the assistant. So in the request, we're saying, hey, call from this number, which I already set as the variable, call to this number, which is the customer number. Same thing we did when we did that filter. I had to find this from the Calendly module and use these brackets with the 1 and the answer, because it was the answer to question 1. So that is their phone number. This is their name, again, pulling from Calendly. And this is the assistant who's gonna call, and that assistant is the JSON version that is right here, which is the latest JSON version that we've edited and adjusted with the dynamic variables, and we've parsed only what we need from it. So you can take a look at this. The formatting here is really important. Follow the formatting and this will work. So let's test it out and let's see it live. Okay. Oh, look, I'm getting a phone call right now.
Hi, I'm Saya, Alejo and Paige's assistant. Is this Paige?
This is Paige. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm just calling to confirm that you'll be joining Alejo and Paige at your upcoming appointment with Amplify Voice on Friday, August 16th at 7. Will you be able to attend?
Yes, I will be there.
Great. Have you added the event to your calendar? The Zoom link is in the calendar invite.
Thanks for the reminder. I'm gonna do that right now.
Perfect. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too. Yeah. Man, the time zone, figuring out the time zone was so good. Celebrate the little wins. I know I didn't do a live build with you today, so it looks like the scenario is picture perfect with no errors. But trust me when I tell you that I encountered a ton of errors building this scenario and had many times where I was just banging my head up against the wall and phoning a friend, phoning Alejo, being like, help me, what do I do? So hopefully this video and really walking through the build step by step helps to simplify the process for you, and I hope that it saves you a lot of time. You're probably still going to confront errors, and if you do, don't despair. Make very easily makes you want to bang your head up against the wall, so you're not alone. And if you haven't heard about it or haven't checked it out before, something that we host on our school community, if you're not a member, click in the description below to sign up. Twice a week, we host community build hours where we invite you to bring your projects. So come with your make errors so we can troubleshoot together and spend a lot less time banging our heads up against the wall. I'll also be sharing this make template in our school community resources. So if you're not a member, again, you can join for free. So today you got a behind the scenes glimpse at an automation that we've built for ourselves and have also implemented for other clients as one way that we're using voice AI to optimize business processes, and in this case, seriously minimize the pain and frequency of no-shows. And we're all about harnessing the power of AI, specifically voice AI, to efficientize processes, to create automations that really amplify the human element of your business and empower you with more space, with more time, with more resources to grow and scale your company without losing the human. So if you want to work with us, if you have a project idea or an interesting collaboration where you think we could work together and make something really big, click the Calendly link below and book a call with us. If you're in the US, look out for the confirmation call from Saya. If you found this helpful, subscribe to our channel. We're constantly sharing content about using voice AI and automations to grow and scale businesses on all different kinds of level. If you haven't checked out Alejo's videos, he's got some great content about building voice agents in Vapi and using some of the more advanced features like squads, really powerful stuff. And if you're coming from a non-developer background like myself, I hope this video leaves you with some inspiration that you don't need a developer background to learn these tools and use them. Just a willingness to learn and some commitment to building up the skills and getting your hands in Make. If you're new to Make and eager to get in there and learn and build, then I recommend joining our school community, downloading the template for the scenario and starting there. Start with the template. You can watch this video minute by minute or pause when you need to build the structures and start the learning from that process. It's definitely a much easier way to go than starting from scratch and then feeling lost and in the middle of the woods without any structure. Thanks for tuning in. Again, my name is Paige. I hope to see you around sometime soon in our Amplify Voice School community. Until the next time.